Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tour de Greaves Cycling Show. I'm Andrew Greaves. This show, as ever, in association with SportsAid and the Rayner Foundation. For more information on the Tour de Greaves, what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, etc., visit tourdegreaves.co.uk. Delighted to say we've got, I think, our first national champion on the Tour de Greaves Cycling Show. We had a teammate, Tom Schoins, a week or so ago. But I'm delighted to welcome Yorkshire-born, but the American US road race champion, and also a classics winner already this season, Ruth Winder. Welcome to the show. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Happy to chat.
Good stuff. You must be delighted with the start to this season. You've had, one very big result, and we'll talk about the photo finish in a minute. But Brabantse Pijl, big race on the calendar. You must be delighted with that result and getting that first result so early in the season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really happy with how I'm racing so far this year. Normally I start my season in Australia, and I was pretty sad to miss Tour Down Under this year. So for me, although it is really early in the seasons too, it also feels like kind of late because I would have sometimes raced already in January because Tour Down Under, we're leaving January 1st to go and race. And I have to say it was pretty nice to mentally to like not really have to be on until March, which is when I really first started racing, when before it was in January. And it was such a mental relief that I didn't even really realize I had that pressure until this year. And then there's always, of course, that like questioning coming into the season, like what's your form like? Because sometimes you can test it out in January a little bit. And then, then for this year I didn't. I just came straight into racing in March. But yeah, super happy to feel the way I'm feeling and riding how I'm riding. And the team's all really strong. So yeah, so far, so good.
Yeah. And that photo finish, I mean, we saw it a couple of days after. So you kind of were, the trailblazer for winning a race like that. But I mean, I think it was 4/1000th of a second.
Yeah.
Debbie Following was celebrating. She looked like she thought she'd had it. I mean, it's never over until it's over. What were your feelings when you crossed the line? Did you think you had it, or was her reaction kind of, did that put you off a bit?
She was on it, like when we were sprinting, she was so far to my left that I could barely even see her. Like if you look at the finish photo, like we're both on complete opposite sides of the road. So it's really, I could barely see her out the corner of my eye. So when I threw my bike, it was just this really instinctual, like, oh, there's somebody coming, like throw it. And then when she celebrated, sorry, I'm sitting in the kitchen. There's a little bit of back and around noise with the
glamorous
kitchen.
life of a cyclist.
Yeah. But when she celebrated, I just thought, oh, she's won. Like she has it. Congratulations. I was still really happy with my ride and getting second. Of course, I wanted to win. Of course, like I can't sit here and say, oh, I didn't want to win because, of course, I wanted to win. But at the same time, I'd done everything I could up until that point. So if I got second, then I got second and the best rider won. But then when I came to the finish line afterwards, there was all the cameras and everyone was like, celebrate, like do a pose because they wanted to take a picture of me celebrating. And I was like, yay, second place, woo, like of course excited, but I hadn't won. And then someone came and told me that I actually had won. So it wasn't until like a couple minutes after the finish that I knew that I'd won. So yeah.
I guess it almost feels a bit like we have in football in England at the minute with VAR. The celebrations kind of happen 2 or 3 minutes after they've checked the cameras and things like that. But you showed brilliant form as well midweek, so just a couple of days ago. I mean, that is a hard race, and Anna van der Breggen is the queen of that race. She ended up getting a second victory. What was the game plan? Was your kind of attack and that kind of latter stage always part of it?
Yeah, it was, because we just really needed to make the other teams chase, So like Elisa, we know, is super strong on a final like that of the climb. And we were really happy, the whole team, because we had Lucinda in the earlier break, and all of the girls really did their role that day. And for me to be able to do that attack, I didn't expect to feel that strong and to be able to ride that way. And I think we definitely put a little bit of fear in them because I was able to get 30 seconds right away. Oh, not right away, but like I was able to get a sizable gap that they really had to commit to the chase and really had to put someone to chase. So, Plans don't always work out perfectly like that, but it really was an ideal situation for us. And although we didn't come away with the win at Flesh alone, we were as a team really happy with how we raced, and I think it was a really fun bike race to be a part of and watch. And yeah, so we all had like really good feelings after that, especially
And how much does that? I mean, how much of that will you take into Liège on Sunday? I mean, you've obviously got big efforts on midweek Wednesday. Does that kind of confidence that you get from that kind of ride, does it kind of null the fatigue you may feel if you've gone as deep as you go in a race a few days before? And LBL was one of the biggest races, I guess, on the calendar from a classics point of view.
I think I try not to think about it. Every time I get on my bike, I'm like, I feel great. I feel great. I feel good. If I let myself think anything else, then maybe I would if you start to think about it a little bit too much, then maybe it's not the best.
Yeah. And you touched on the fact that obviously you've got a lot of brilliant teammates in there. It must be a real buzz riding for a team like Trek. I mean, you mentioned Lucinda and Elisa and Lizzie. You've got such a kind of galaxy of stars. And I guess the women's peloton is very much like that, isn't there? I mean, there's lots of teams with lots of stars. What's it like riding with them at training camps and in races? Does it become easy because you've got several options to play in each of these races?
Yeah, I really like them all individually as people. I think, and that really helps a lot too. I think that having such strong teammates that are also so willing to help you all the time, help you grow, like they're not just thinking about their own result, they're thinking about the team as a whole, and they want to know what our goals are too. As more domestique riders, they understand we still have goals and everything. And I think that riding with them, it's really inspiring and really cool because you know that the work that you're doing in a race, you have these riders that are really going to pull it through at the end, which is really cool, really good feeling. And they're going to do everything they can, even if they don't win at the end of the day. You still know that they're doing everything they can. And for me, that feeling comes from knowing them personally and their personalities and knowing they're going to give everything. But yeah, they're Palomares of all of their races that they've won too. They just have so much experience and are really happy to chat with me. And really, when I won Brabantse Pijl, they were so excited for me. And Lizzie had helped me kind of set some goals earlier in the year and look to that race a bit too. And their experience has been really invaluable to me.
Yeah. Is it a constant learning process? I mean, I guess, there's cyclists, a hell of a lot older than you who are, also, they always say kind of, cycling in a way is always a learning process because the courses change, or even if the courses don't change, you learn from one year to the next that's the right place to go, or that's the right place to go, and things like that. Is it a constant learning process, the bike racing as a sport?
Definitely. I would say so. I think you just get a little bit more confidence about the direction that you want to go. But I think different doors and opportunities and things to learn are always there. But then you kind of become more selective on the information that you want to use to help you go the direction that you want to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you're in the national champs jerseys. I always think the US national champs jersey is one of the best looking jerseys if it's done right, because of with the flag and everything. Does that give you extra motivation? I mean, I guess it's kind of a real honour, and I know the British national champs jerseys is something that a lot of riders like to ride. We had Alice Barnes a couple of episodes ago, and she said it gives her a real kind of buzz. I guess there's not much chance to show it off in America, but having it in Europe, does it give you a real buzz to be riding with that very distinctive jersey on your back?
Yeah, I really like riding in the jersey. It is pretty special. I think, there's not really too much to say. I think it just feels really special. It's hard to describe. It's just such a hard race to win too, and everybody wants to win it. And we're really lucky in the US. We have a lot of really talented US women cyclists, and to win the race is super hard, and to have won it and to be able to wear the jersey, I know how many girls really fought for it and really wanted it. So like, I suppose any bike race, right, there's always people fighting for it. So, but it's a jersey you get to wear all year round. And now because of COVID, they didn't hold the national championships last year. So technically I've been wearing it for 2 years. So I've gotten quite used to seeing myself in it. And I do really enjoy it. They do a really nice job with the kit too. If you see a picture, I think that it looks like a really beautiful kit. We have like regulations. USA Cycling have regulations on like how you're allowed to design the jersey. So in some degree, they can only make it look a certain way, but I really think that it looks really nice with the stars, and I think it's a beautiful jersey. So it definitely makes me feel like I want to do it really proud, you know?
Yeah, I know there's always a debate over national team jerseys and, those federations that have, rules and regs and those that don't. But I think, like I say, I think it always looks great, and, the men's and the women's jerseys look fantastic. How has the last year been? I mean, COVID obviously had a huge impact on 2020, and we're kind of coming out of hibernation slowly but surely. Was there any sense of going into this season that, every race you're competing could be the last because we don't know how the situation is going to unfold? Or were there lessons learned from last year about how to approach it? And, have you changed the way you prepare for races in kind of response to lockdown and not being able to race for large parts of last season?
I think I feel more comfortable now than I did in July last year. Like July last year, I was like, why am I coming over to Europe? Everything's just going to be canceled. We don't really know the situation. I feel kind of scared. We've been in lockdown. Like I've not been able to see any of my friends. This feels weird to like go back with the team. I felt really uncomfortable with it. And I think that added a lot of stress and pressure on me kind of throughout the end of the season. Even in the middle of the season, I think it was affecting me more than I really realized until I left home too. And it does feel really weird because even now when I go home, I still wasn't seeing friends inside. I still wasn't hugging people I love. And then you come into the team and you're all of a sudden around all these people again. And it just feels weird. And then you go into the peloton and you're like around 150 people. And we do all get tested almost every 3 days while we're around the team. So it does feel quite safe, but it's still not 100% foolproof. So yeah. And then with preparation for races and everything, I personally just see it as if the calendar is going to happen the way that the calendar is right now. And so you just go in and you're preparing as if the race is going to happen. And then if it gets canceled, then it gets canceled. Like Britannia, we were supposed to have a stage race in Britannia in the beginning of May. And that was one of I was really looking forward to that race, and it had a time trial in it. So I hardly spent any time on my time trial bike. I'm really not into my time trial bike, but that race had a time trial. So I'd taken my time trial bike out of the shed and dusted it off and prepared myself. And then I think the next day we heard that that race had been canceled. And this was a couple months ago. They canceled it early. So at least I had time to prepare for that mentally.
Yeah.
But still, I was like, okay, then put the TT bike back away. So there's small things like that, but you can't. People are like, oh, I'm really sorry that race got canceled, and I'm like, yeah, me too. But it's more because it had to be canceled because coronavirus cases is so bad. Like it sucks for racing, but at the same time, if it wasn't responsible to have the race, then I can't be mad about it. There's other bike races that we're lucky enough to still have on the calendar. So yeah,
and hopefully, finally. A Paris-Roubaix for women to look forward to in October. It's not on the same day as the men's, so hopefully post Worlds, I think it is as well. So
yeah,
I guess
it's the weekend after Worlds.
Yeah, so people will be kind of like having to keep their form. Is that one of your kind of targets for the end of the year?
No, not for me personally. I'm really excited for it to be that next weekend because I might still have to race now because quite a lot of races have been delayed to October. But in my perfect situation, I would race the World Championships, which is the Flanders like Belgium Classic World Championships that I'm pretty excited about. And hopefully my fiance could come over and travel to Europe at that time. And then we could have a glorious week in Belgium where we eat fruits and drink beer and then watch Paris-Roubaix together. And I think that would just be amazing. It's not a bike race that I necessarily want to participate in myself, but it's going to be so cool to watch. And I know many women that are so excited to race it. But yeah, it's just couples are not really my thing. I have no problem with saying that. The couples that are uphill and like the Flanders type stuff, like I'm okay with those, but the the Roubaix cobbles. It's just, and I think in men's cycling, you see it a lot more, right? Like you see men that really specify in different types of races. And in women's racing, you just see women doing all of them. So sometimes I like to tell myself, oh my God, this like, it's not that unusual to maybe not want to like be specific in this race. But people do get surprised sometimes when I say, oh, it's not for me. But it's not that I'm not excited about the race. I'm super excited about the race and I can't wait for it to happen. And I was bummed that when it didn't happen in the spring, because I was like ready to be a cheerleader, because I still love the sport cycling, whether I'm in the race or watching the race. But for me personally, it's the women's tour actually has been delayed to October. So I'm kind of thinking like around that time, maybe I'll be at the women's tour, which I'm excited about, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another step in the way, in the direction of equality. Still a hell of a lot of work to do around prize money. But you ride for a team in Trek that have equalised the men's and the women's kind of basic, I guess, the minimum wage. That's a really important step forward, isn't it, for the women's side of the sport? I know, greater exposure for racers is what will really help push the women's side of the sport forward. But it's a real kind of mark in the sand for yourselves and Team Bike Exchange, actually recognising the fact that, there's no difference between whether you're male or female. You're still having to go and race these races.
Yeah, no, I feel super supported on Trek. It's really awesome what they're trying to do for women's cycling, for sure. Like you said, I think more TV exposure is great, but they're also working on trying to do that. We have a little series called The Run Up coming out with, it's with Canyon and SD Works as well, but we're trying to Trek are also trying to work with them to try and make some more content and like different videos and everything. So yeah, with the base salaries, it's a really, really nice step in the right direction. And it's a really nice feeling to be on this team that you feel super appreciated. And when we have success on the women's side or on the men's side, it feels really cohesive. Not just when we have success, I shouldn't say that necessarily, but I feel like we're a team. I really appreciate that men's cycling is men's cycling and women's cycling is women's cycling. And I don't necessarily want them to be the same, but I really think that Trek are doing a good job of giving the women the same respect and everything that the men also get. So that's really cool to be a part of. And hopefully it'll kind of progress throughout the entire peloton and we'll get more, we even have more TV coverage now than we've had a couple years ago. So it is already getting a lot better and that'll only help things because the more exposure, then the more sponsors will be willing to invest, because that's what we are, right? Like big billboards for sponsors. So hopefully more exposure and more people watching bike racing.
Definitely. And I touched on it in the intro before we let you go, but you were born in Yorkshire, not a million miles away from where I am in Burnley over in Keighley.
Yeah.
How often do you get back? I mean, I know you were back for the Worlds and you mentioned the women's tour and, is that, do you get back at all? Do you have family still over here in Yorkshire that you visit?
My grandma's in Bolton. And I have a granddad in Manchester. And then more of my grandparents I have a set of grandparents that actually retired to the south of France, like some do from when they're done with England. But yeah, last time I was in the UK was for Worlds. And I had such a good time. I stayed afterwards and it was such a great World Championships. Atmosphere, everything. It was a really good World Championships and I'm really sad I haven't been back since, but it's basically been since the coronavirus lockdowns and everything that it's just not been possible to go back, and then also with Brexit and things just making a little bit more complicated, but I hope for the women's tour that it can happen later in the year. I don't know. It's hard to, I don't want to speculate. It's hard to know what'll happen, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it does. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I get on that team because I know almost everybody on the team wants to go to that race because it's a really, really well-run race. And they really put on a good show for the women and treat us super well at that race. And it's been a couple years since I've done it, actually. I don't think I've done it since maybe 2014 or 15 maybe. So I'm just going. It's okay. Chef's in his office. I'm in the chef's office, so we have to let this blender.
Yeah, you can't get in the way of a chef. My wife works with a chef, and woe betide getting in their way. I definitely think. Just very finally before we let you go and we let the chef get on with his work. What's the rest of your program look like after Liège-Bastogne-Liège on this weekend? Have you got a break? Then you mentioned the stage race at the start of May that's been cancelled. Have you got a bit of downtime before your next block of racing, or what's your calendar look like over the next couple of months?
So actually I have there's a 3-day stage race in Luxembourg that I'll do that starts on the 29th. So there's not that many days. It's the next weekend after Liège we start. So then there's that. And then I'll have about 10 days between a couple races in Spain that I do. And then I will go home back to Colorado, where I live in Boulder, Colorado. And I'll be there for about a month before we hopefully have our nationals in the US. And then I'll come back over for La Course and Giro in July. So that's kind of my plan right now. But actually, yeah, looking forward to the stage race in Luxembourg. It should be a good lumpy one. And then I'll be I'm going to fly straight to Bilbao, actually, and have 10 days around Bilbao. And I've heard that the Basque Country is beautiful. And I don't know, like it's weird to try and travel right now with restrictions and everything. But I'm hoping that I can kind of see somewhere new and see what that area of Spain is like. So, but yeah, first Liège and then LC Jacob Tour.
Yeah, Basque Country, I think is top of our list to get over there because it just looks an incredible part of Spain, and the fans there just look incredible. Well, we wish you all the very best. Thanks so much for coming on and chatting to us. Wish you all the best for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Congrats on a brilliant start to the season. Hopefully, we perhaps catch up again, maybe at the women's tour if you get the nod, and we'll hopefully might be able to do something face to face then.
Yeah, that would be really great. I hope so. I'll keep my fingers crossed for that.
Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.